Welcome to a Bestow TV production. If you enjoy our content, please click the subscribe button. To get notifications of new releases, ring that bell. Thank you, and away we go.
We're here at New York Comic Con 2013 with some scary people who kidnapped me and now want me to be on. Joshua Hale Fialkov.
I started self-publishing. I did webcomics for a few years. I did mini comics, and then I had a small publishing company with a buddy of mine, and we did a horror anthology called Western Tales of Terror.
Wow.
And I tricked myself as editor-in-chief into hiring me to write like 3/4 or like half of every book. And then from doing that, I started to meet more artists and make more friends in the industry. And I did a book called Elks Run that we self-published also. And then eventually Random House bought that book, and I've been just kind of working solidly ever since. No, it was something that like I believed in what we were doing, and kind of the upside of it is that it was just cost effective because you're doing it yourself. Like when you're doing it yourself, like you don't have money. We got a lot of guys to do work. Almost everyone did work for free just to do shorts, just to have the shorts published. And we got the first work of a lot of guys who went on to do some really cool stuff. I mean, I did a book at Dark Horse like 5 or 6 years ago now. I did a bunch of stuff at Marvel back then, but I did predominantly my own creator-owned stuff. So I was, working towards self-publishing, but I worked for everybody. I worked for Harris on Vampirella for about 1.5 years. I did a lot of stuff for Top Cow. I owe a lot of my career to the guys at Top Cow. I learned a ton working there with Rob Levin and Philip Sablik, who have both now. Rob is now at CBR, and Philip is now running one of the guys running Boom. But those two guys, they both really took a vested interest in me and really, helped build me up.
How did you find yourself in the New 52?
I think they needed a horror writer, and I had just done a book called Echoes. It was a combination. Like I'd been nominated for an Eisner. This is all speculation, but I've been nominated for an Eisner for a book I did called Tumor. And on the tail of that, I also released a book called Echoes. It was a hard horror book that was nominated for a bunch of Harvey Awards and was pretty well regarded. And I think they needed a horror writer and didn't know better. So they hired me. They brought me in. The hiring process was actually really easy.
So what stuff are you working at Dark Horse right now?
On Dark Horse, I'm working on Skyman, which is part of their superhero universe. It spins off of Captain Midnight. And I'm real lucky because Captain Midnight's actually written by one of my good friends, by Josh Williamson. Yeah. So we get to talk a lot and really try to make the books kind of fit together. It's been a really, really fun time. Like it's nice to do sort of a simple, clean superhero book. We got, I think, some pretty cool twists and turns. I'm really, really proud of the book. I think it's a lot of fun. I can't wait for people to see it. Right now, Marvel, I'm working on Cataclysm. It's our big fall event for the Ultimate Universe. I'm writing, Brian Bendis is writing the main series as well as Ultimate Spider-Man, and I'm writing the Ultimates and Ultimate X-Men, and it is so much fun, it's ridiculous. The event is about the Galactus from the classic Marvel Universe crosses over into the Ultimate Universe and wreaks absolute carnage across all of the galaxy. So the Hunger miniseries, that the last issue is coming out soon, or has come out, depending on when this runs. The Hunger miniseries is actually about Galactus meeting Galactus,
okay.
The Galactus Swarm. And in that, that's a story told from the point of view of Rick Jones.
Oh, wow.
Of Ultimate Rick Jones, who is totally awesome. And it's got Silver Surfer and Captain Marvel. It's so much fun. And it's with art by the amazing Leonard Kirk. It's just scorchingly good. Brian's awesome. We talk regularly. I know what he's doing in his story. He knows what I'm doing in my stories. And what we're trying to do something with the book where all the stories are telling one story, but each one's being told kind of as its own little movie. So you have like each one is its own little story, separate from everything else. You can read any piece, or you can read all of it. If you read all of it, it's going to be better. It's going to be more pleasurable. But you can read individual pieces. You can read it however you want to read.
What is the Ultimate X-Men? How do they come into the story?
Well, so the Ultimate X-Men, it's coming right out of what Brian Wood was doing with World War X. So, they're, the X-Men are dealing with this huge giant battle that just happened that literally has torn the two factions apart. And so we're sort of, so I'm picking up the story from there. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do that epilogue issue. Yeah. There's always at the end of events, there's always that little epilogue issue. So in the middle of the epilogue, where it's this somber, let's reflect on what we've done. Oh my God, Giant Purple Man!
How's it working on Ultimates?
Great, it's so much fun. I love the Ultimate Universe. When I was starting in comics, I had always just kind of assumed I'd always do create your own stuff and sort of on my own corner. And reading Ultimate Spider-Man as it was starting
with Bagley,
was one of the first, with Bagley, the very early stuff was some of the first stuff I read that made me think oh, I want to and can do this. This is a legitimate way to go. And Bendis, for me to get to work with Bendis is completion of sort of a nice circle. I was a fan of his. I was on his message board when I was starting out. He was always super supportive of me. So it's really a dream come true. Doing I have my digital comic, The Bunker, which is a creator-owned series we're doing. It's Comixology exclusive.
Oh wow.
Doing that book where it's all the same thing, where it's really gone almost all the way back to when we were starting. It's just Joe and Fernari and I. We own it together. We do everything ourselves. There's no, we just added an editor in Rob Levin, but it's really a mom and pop thing, and that's had just a huge amount of success. It's been so gratifying to kind of get to do both sides and get to have so much fun and reward doing both.
What can you tell readers about that upcoming story?
So what The Bunker is about is a group of friends, while out to bury a time capsule, discover a military-style bunker. And inside that bunker is information about the apocalypse and their roles in it.
That's scary.
And each one of them has to make a life decision about whether they're going to follow the path they're on, knowing that path might lead to the end of mankind.
Would you follow down that path?
I don't know. That's the thing. It's sort of something that, it's funny, but it's something that Joe and I talk about when we're working on the book all the time. The idea of fate and decisions. And what's interesting is that the work has kind of bled over into our lives and the business side of the book too, where we have a lot of conversations about if we go down this road, this happens. And if we go down this road, that happens. And it's very self-fulfilling. We're doing right now on Comixology, you can actually try the first issue of The Bunker for free. So what you can do is if you go to www.comixology.com/redeem, and then enter the password, what is The Bunker, you get the first issue for free to try out.
Sir, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you
Good
so much.
conversation. The writer, Peter David.
For many years, I wanted to be a reporter until I decided I did not want to be. But my interest in writing was still there, and I just kind of drifted over toward fiction.
What type of fiction were you influenced by?
Oh, science fiction, fantasy. All fiction, really, I was influenced. I've had over 100 novels published. In recent days, I've taken to publishing some of them myself. It's under the imprint of Crazy 8 Press, which is a group endeavor that is done by myself and several of my friends, Mike Friedman, Bob Greenberger, Aaron Rosenberg, folks like that. Pulling Up Stakes is a vampire novel of mine. That I actually did initially send around to publishers who rejected it for very strange reasons, such as, oh, no, if it's going to be a vampire book, it has to be written by a woman. Or if it's a vampire book, it has to be about a mortal woman who's hopelessly in love with a sterling romantic vampire. Everything they wanted to see is everything that Pulling Up Stakes is not about. And that was kind of frustrating. But Crazy 8 came along, and I published it myself and several other of my titles, and I'm having a great time doing it. I tend to lean more towards fantasy novels, I've noticed. I did more recently I did a novel called Fearless that I co-wrote with my daughter Caroline. That is a sequel to a previous novel of mine called Tiger Heart. That was a lot of fun.
How did you approach, I guess I would say, editors or publishers with your work?
Well, I was working at Marvel Comics. I worked in the sales department, so it wasn't that difficult for me to approach the editors. I walked into their offices. But there was a great deal of resistance from the Marvel editors because at that time, nobody from the business side of the industry, at the time I was working in the sales department, no one from the business side had ever come over into the editorial creative side. There was kind of a schism. And that wound up being broken down by Jim Owsley, who hired me on to do Spider-Man for a year or two. And then I wound up getting Hulk, and it just kind of went from there.
When you did Young Justice, some of your stories, and you talk about this, I believe, in your comics book, writing comics, you focused on a lot of socially conscious stories about the impact of different events going on, but you focused on a single character. What was your thought process behind doing that?
To tell good stories. I mean, it really was, my feeling was I had teenagers. I should write stories about them and about them learning about the world. And these were things that were going on in the world, and I thought it would be appropriate to tell those stories not only for the learning process of the characters, but also for the learning process of the people who were reading about them.
Were you influenced by the ideas that like Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams did in the Green Lantern, Green Arrow run?
I wasn't thinking consciously about, wow, I really want to do relevant comic books. I mean, I loved Denny and Neil's stuff at the time, although I even then felt it was a little heavy-handed. I tried to have a lighter touch with my work. Whether I did or not, I pretty much leave up to the readers to decide. Whenever I would want to do something fairly major with a character, it had to be overseen and approved by top levels of editorial. DC was much more conscious in terms of staying on top of things like that. Whereas with the various comics I do for Marvel, it's pretty much I get the okay from my editor and I'm good to go.
Do you feel you like more writing, I guess, graphic literature with comics and everything, or more having more control, I guess, over the scenery and everything with...
I like them both for different reasons. You get very different products. I mean, I love writing novels because it's the purest form of communication with my readership. On the other hand, when I'm doing a comic book, the final product can wind up being better than anything I could have done single-handedly because I'm doing it in the company of another creator.
What other stuff do you have coming up that you're self-publishing, doing comics-wise with Marvel?
I just actually turned in a manuscript to Amazon Press that they're going to be publishing called Artful, the story of the Artful Dodger, Hunter of Vampires. I have a new X Factor series. A corporation that's kind of the Marvel Comics equivalent of Google decides to get into the superhero industry. And they put together their own team. They licensed the name X Factor from Jamie Madrox, and they start assembling a team. The first 3 people who are part of the team, which I will tell you about, are Polaris, Quicksilver, and Gambit. And we have 3 other members who will be coming in during the first 6 books.
Thank you very
Hi,
much.
this is Peter David doing the outro. Goodbye. Goodbye. Have fun.
Are you an accountant?
No, but
Want to be?
maybe they do.
All right,
pretty
let's
well.
just
They do
practice.
pretty well.
Can you count?
1, 2, 3, 4.
No,
5.
you weren't using your fingers.
Watch Creative Continuity, Codtoons, Con Rewind, Mr. Lobo Does, and more on this channel.
Creative Continuity. We bring the convention to you.